Welcome back to Respect the Process. I am Kelly Hunter, and I am alongside my good friend, voice of Crimson Tide Athletics, Chris Stewart. How are you today?
I'm good. Okay. It's good to see you.
I feel like we need to do full disclosure. This is take two.
It is take two. We're fine.
We're good. We only got a couple minutes into the last one.
We're good. But take two is usually not always better. Sometimes.
I said I am going to let you decide. This is going to be a gentleman's choice where we start with today, because I have
football and
Alabama
hoops.
football, and I have Alabama basketball.
We got by the time you and I. You may tell me it may already be above fourth ranked, but should be above fourth ranked. Number three. I hadn't seen the polls. And Alabama, which we're accustomed to being number one.
Yep.
We'll go with football to get it out of the way so we can spend more time on hoops.
Okay. Well, because we had some timely information come out yesterday that...
What's that, Kelly?
Well, it's not official. We feel like it's been official before.
Yeah.
But that Ryan Grubb is going to be coming back alongside Kalen DeBoer this season. He had originally been with him since back in their days in Sioux Falls, and now he had, after a slightly less than, there was a winning season with the Seahawks. It was 10-7, but I think not what Seattle was ultimately looking for, and maybe not even what Ryan Grubb was ultimately looking for.
That may be the bigger case.
Sometimes you have to always see if the grass really is greener. I have a whole theory on that with college and NFL coaches. But we're not quite sure what his title is going to be. We're not quite sure what former OC Nick Sheridan's title is going to be, but as I was saying earlier, he's owed money, so he'll be back coaching or doing something. Is this the package that they thought they were hiring a year ago?
I think so. Your first choice... not in all cases is the first choice the best choice. Don't forget, Nick Saban hired Major Applewhite as his very first offensive coordinator at Alabama, who's gone on to have a good career, really good career, head coach at South, doing a good job there. But at that time, didn't turn out too well. One and done as the OC, as memory serves. Now you had Ryan Grubb, who goes through spring practice. Mm-hmm. Did he not? As the guy went through signing day.
Went through signing day. That's right. Not spring practice, but through signing day as the guy. And then Seattle offers him a chance to go to the NFL. I'm assuming that means a pay increase. And by the way, his family doesn't have to move. And I don't remember the family dynamic at the time. If the kids were older, going into senior year, maybe. I don't know what the dynamic is, except they never had to move. And I don't mean move towns. I mean move from their home. Yeah.
So when you've got a family, that's a big thing. If you're not 100% sure you get an opportunity in the NFL, you got to take it, because the NFL opportunity may not come along.
And that's an itch, I think, that's hard for some guys not to scratch.
And the guy knows, with his resume, his connections, and the friendship with Kalen DeBoer, there may not be an opportunity with him in a year, but there'll be an opportunity somewhere in college football in a year, because my college resume is not tarnished. And regardless of how it goes in the NFL, people understand you can't always base, unless you're talking about a head coaching situation for another head coaching job in the league, you can't always base the outcome, especially of one season, on what the future may hold at that level. So it was a good move for him to stay in Seattle, to take the Seahawks job. And now he's got an opportunity, apparently. And look, there are a lot of really reputable media outlets that are posting, that have posted that it's done. I go with the one from Yay, Alabama. Not only is that the collective, Aaron Suttles was and is still a great reporter.
Right.
It was the primary beat guy covering Alabama athletics for the Tuscaloosa News before he went different avenue, and is very much involved with the Next Round platform with what he does. There's nobody I trust anymore than Aaron when it comes to a story. And if he was comfortable, not only, I'm not even debating the accuracy, the fact that he's comfortable enough with it from Alabama insiders in the powers that be at Alabama to go ahead and write this, that tells me it's done at some level.
No, exactly, because that's where a lot of the money is coming in, and you're not going to disappoint people who are bringing money into the university by spreading false information
and you're also,
inaccurate information.
Well, and if you're the official collective, you're also not going to go with that if football's not comfortable with you going with it.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's where it stands. It's at the moment, I believe, and I would expect maybe even by the time this thing is posted that we do get something official from Alabama Athletics.
Because I think a lot of people do want to see him in the quarter zip. People want to see him on campus coaching because we heard that Nick Saban tried to hire him as his final OC. We heard he was coming last year, and then that happened with the Seahawks. So I think until his feet are on Tuscaloosa soil, he's got the whistle around his neck.
Well, and look, it may be that he's already there. He just had, we haven't, as Craig did with the hiring, we have not seen the puffs of smoke from Archibald's or Dreamland, but I've got a feeling that he's there and it's done or very shortly will be.
What do you think this does for the quarterback race for in the spring? Because we have, we have Ty Simpson, who has waited his turn.
Yeah. We
have Austin Mack, who has a great deal of familiarity because he came from Washington with DeBoer, and then you have the 5-star freshman Keelan Russell.
I don't think it changes anything day one. If I am Austin Mack, I may feel like, hey, this gives me a slight advantage over Ty Simpson.
Just because I'm the kind of guy they want around?
Well, and also he has a year's experience from his redshirt season with Ryan Grubb directly that Ty Simpson didn't have. So he's got not necessarily more experience with Kalen DeBoer, but the fact that he has a relationship with Ryan Grubb. So I think that may help him, again, slightly. It's about what you do on the field. It's about relationships you build. That won't be tough for Ty. He's already, I think, got the confidence of the locker room, people there. It's going to be I think it'll be an open competition once we get into the spring. But it's a good problem to have. You got a veteran who's been around for quite a while that I think they can win with. Mm-hmm. You've got Austin Mack, who's been in the Kalen DeBoer system now for 2 years, and I think is a great talent. Man, I love watching him sling the football. I love how he looks, his presence in the pocket. And then you got Keelan Russell, who's everybody is excited about, and understandably so. Yeah. Number 2 prospect in the entire country. This is an elite level player. So, yes, you're losing a veteran who got you into a college football playoff 13 months ago. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have a high level quarterback. And with no disrespect to Nick Sheridan, if indeed the engineer of the offense from a coordinating standpoint is Ryan Grubb, you've got the band back together in their spots that got you the job to begin with at Alabama. It's Kalen DeBoer as the head coach, but that was a staff and in those positions that along with him made it possible for him to be the top candidate on Greg Burns' list. Yep.
And then finally, our final thought on football. What do you think about Nebraska potentially canceling their spring game? And is this something that you would be surprised to see? I guess he is concerned, Matt Rhule is concerned about teams watching the spring game and then poaching his players shortly after to take them on after the portal opens again.
And having grown up in the 70s and 80s, I can't believe that I'm going to make the statement I'm going to make. But how many teams vying for a national championship want Nebraska players? If you're in a position, I'm not saying they don't have a couple.
And they may have some now. I don't know.
I don't know. But
do you think your spring game is going to determine? Do you think another coach is signing a guy based exclusively off of what he sees in a spring game? Look, if you've got another reason, that's fine. I don't know. But to hide your players, Lincoln may be tough to get to, but it ain't like people can't find film on players if they want them and they know who's already there. To give you the short answer to what the partial part of the question was, I don't know if anybody else is canceling spring games to go, hey, that's a good idea. Alabama won't be. I mean, A-Day is one of the biggest days in Tuscaloosa.
Yes.
It's
as we have
bigger.
Seen.
It's as big or bigger than some of the regular season games when you're talking about the whole campus.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you're talking about different colleges, the alumni office, there are a ton of things that are sitting on go with agendas, itineraries, everything. They're waiting on the date to be announced, or were waiting on the date to be announced for A-Day. That is something that every office on that university campus is waiting on. What day is A-Day? So we can build our week of A-Day schedule and put all of our plans in place. It's huge, and I cannot imagine them doing away with it. Now, the games look different before. Ray Perkins' first or second year as the head football coach at Alabama, twofold reason. One, he wanted to pay tribute to the legacy, but he also wasn't sure how many players he was going to have, healthy scholarship guys. Mm-hmm. He did an all-star team of former Alabama players against his current roster. And there was, part of the fun with all that is that the university president, Joab Thomas, got a carry for the all-star team. If I'm not mistaken, Kenny Stabler and Joe Namath may have dressed out for that game.
That sounds like some liquid courage that might have been involved in that too. But I'm not.
Kenny, it was always going, and Joe Namath, there was always going to be liquid courage. Anyway, whoever the players were, there were guys that had played, and I don't know that the game was, the game was not typical game.
Yeah.
But you find a way to do something, even if it's a dress scrimmage, whatever. There's going to be some form of a game out there because it means too much tradition-wise at Alabama.
Yeah, and they can all help hide players then, too, if they need to, because you got all of those
Put them in different numbers. They'll never figure that out.
Okay, we're going to talk some basketball now.
Because
it's been a good week since last you and I met.
Yeah.
A tough victory in Starkville. They did such a number on the Bulldogs. We watched what happened when Missouri came into Starkville this past Saturday. And then a good win against Georgia because we saw some things. Yeah. If there's one issue we can put to bed, Mark Sears. He's done pouting and sulking. Those are Nate Oates' words, not mine. I'm not saying he was necessarily talking about Mark, but that was a phrase that was used. He's back on the court leading the Tide.
It was exactly what we told you it would be. It was dealt with both ways, and everything would be fine and wouldn't be a topic once the game was over.
Right.
And it's not.
No.
This is back being a team that's trying to chase a national championship. And the win in Starkville was big because I'm amazed at how, even though the tempo and the pace has changed in the almost 25 years that I've done Alabama basketball, but the physicality of an Alabama-Mississippi State game has not changed in the least.
No.
It is an absolute war, and it was a great game to watch.
Chris Youngblood with such a big, I mean, he steps up with 23 points, and he is and we'll talk a little bit more about LeBaron in a minute, but Youngblood has stepped right up and found a spot for himself in the starting lineup and has secured it with his play these past couple games.
And it's not just the fact that he had 20 plus, 21, 22.
I think he had 23 against State. Yeah.
It's the timing of those. I mean, he had like 3 threes in a row or 3 out of 4 in a stretch when you had to have them. And just, man, so tough.
And that means mental as well as physical toughness. So much fun to watch, and that's what every game is. It helps knowing that your team is one of the best in the country when you're going in to do the broadcast for that team. But you're excited just as a basketball fan because you know it's going to be a heck of a game. And Alabama's in a spot now where they're getting everybody's best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got it. I say you got it from Georgia. I don't know if that's accurate. You got a good performance from Georgia. And we're going in going, oh, Georgia's just a 2-win team in the league. Yeah, but they're already in the at that time when you're doing the projections, they're in the NCAA tournament.
Well, and in the first half, but by the time ESPN flipped over to where we were able to watch and some were able to listen the whole time, you know, Alabama started off with what it seemed like a 24-10 lead. And by halftime, you're going, this thing's getting...
Yeah.
24-18, 20. You're like,
and then they got
it
it back up to 8, I think, by halftime or whatever it was. But there was work to be done, and that's, you know, they can get you so quickly. But they also have these lapses, and part of it's them, but part of it is the fact that everybody you're facing is talented and dangerous. That when you do have a letdown, others can close it somewhat quickly. The win against Georgia was really good, especially coming after the win against Mississippi State, where it goes to the wire.
Yep.
You got to get a stop against a guy that you couldn't stop all night.
Right.
Hubbard had 38 in the game and did it all sorts of ways. And Mo Diabate, who'd been frustrated like everybody else on the roster, but he'd beaten Mo multiple times as well. It took 3 guys with Mo leading the charge, but Diabate, you know, forces the guy into a turnover, and you're going to get the ball back, and then finally they hit the free throws that they had to hit and put that thing on ice.
Yeah.
And it was a great win. It's always good to get out of there with a victory. It was so strange. They've done a lot of great things structurally to Humphrey Coliseum over the years. It's a totally different building from even 2 years ago. Let alone 23 when I went in there the first time. But I was standing in the same visitor hallway outside the visiting team locker room and thinking about how, again, physical and tough that game was. And I remember standing in that same hallway interviewing Mark Gottfried after Alabama with Irwin Dudley had lost to Mario Austin and Mississippi State in a brutal ball game. You know, the inside, you know, where it's just the slower pace back then. And back to the basket post guys, even though Irwin will correct me and say, I could square up and shoot. Yes, he could. Yes. He absolutely could. And Irwin could play in today's game. But at that time, you had 2 of the best bigs in the country, back to the basket guys. And I didn't feel like the play and the toughness needed to get a win was any different on Wednesday of last week than it was on a Wednesday night in Starkville, Mississippi in 2003 or 2004.
When we moved to the Georgia game, interestingly, same starting 5 that you had from Wednesday, started against the Georgia Bulldogs this past Saturday. But there was a point in that the first half was. There was a point in the second half, and I think we were almost like the 12-minute mark, and there was about a 3-minute stretch. And it started with Sears. It was a technical foul. Sears hit 2 free throws, and then right after that came out with a huge 3. Mm-hmm. And you talk about big players step up in big games. Well, this wasn't. It was a big game because they needed to go ahead and prove that they could just step on their throat. We're done. Quit.
It's big because you can't win the league without winning this type game.
And they started playing Alabama basketball.
They did.
And that was the point where all of a sudden it flipped. They went to double digits ahead of them. They broke out. And you just felt like, okay, Mark, this is exactly what we've been trying to get you. And we know he has it in him.
Sure. And it's not like it's been a month since he's played that. But you're right. Obviously, had some good moments in the last game. The game prior, which had been the previous home game, you know, we didn't play in the second half. It was Mark.
Yeah.
It was the leader of the team again. Yeah. And that's a very comfortable feeling because you got a bunch of great leaders on that squad, but you need Mark to be the leader of the leaders.
Yep.
And he was. And, man, team is so – I would hate to try to put a scout together because I'm going to guess if you're putting the scout and the layout on 10 guys, the one that you've got down your list, probably 9th or 10th, is Aiden Sherrill.
Yeah.
And in the first 12 minutes of that ball game, he's got 10 points and I think 5 rebounds.
I mean, you got
It is a
23
force
points
around
off
the
the
rim.
bench between him and Aiden Holloway.
Yeah.
Holloway's come off the bench the past 2 games, played double-digit minutes, had double-digit scoring.
And you know you're going to get that from him.
Yeah.
But you get Sherrill hitting 3 threes
And
then doing the job on the glass that he was, you're just like, Mike White. That's when you're looking at your assistants and going, we got nothing.
Yeah.
It's not his fault, not an indictment on their coaching or their team, but when the 9th or 10th guy on your roster, albeit a guy that was a McDonald's All-American, it is not doing anything differently than what he was recruited to do and you knew from preseason work was capable of doing. But when that guy is doing that, you ain't beating Alabama.
The one issue that Coach Oates has said has got to get somehow addressed is turnovers.
Right.
You had 14 against State, you had 20 against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Sears, primary ball handler, sometimes it's going to happen, but 7 in Starkville and 6 back in Coleman on Saturday. If there's one thing that, as a fan, I'm either yelling is protect the basketball or let's please, for the love, just take care of the basketball.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no question that needs to improve.
Because 20 is not, you could do that against a Georgia sometimes, but you can't do that.
Well, and you can't do it and survive if you're playing the old school pace. But when you're getting as many possessions as Alabama gets, I don't advise it, but as you saw in that game, you can survive it. The thing that they can't do that I think is bigger and more important than even the turnover number is not lose your aggressiveness. Now, clearly, you got to protect the ball better. But a lot of what they do and where those turnovers come from, I think, is the fact that they are so comfortable and confident in what they're able to do in the pace and the flow of a game that you're facing teams that, frankly, can get a deflection, they can get an actual takeaway, whatever it may be that results in the turnover. You're so focused on what you are capable of doing, you sometimes forget what the other side is capable of as well. And so I don't want to see them lose. I want to see them do a better job of finishing and executing and not giving the ball away. And that's what they did way too often. But I don't want to see them hesitate any. I think they're far more vulnerable if they lose their aggressiveness than if they turn it over 15 to 18 times. I know you're losing a possession either way, but I don't think you're getting as much done in your other possessions if you're hesitant at all. And I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them take the foot off the gas when it comes to that.
So this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is their last long stretch. They've got 5 days off. This is, of course, starting after this past Saturday against Georgia. No midweek game. So
Correct.
For a nicked-up team, which, at this point in the season, every team is a little nicked up. But particularly, you get LeBaron Philon, he's taken a little bit of a step back in his role. Mm-hmm. Still getting double-digit minutes, but he is, if I'm not mistaken, lower contusion,
lower
type,
middle, upper leg,
something like that.
Yeah.
Not concerned because, as we've said, you've had a guy like Chris Youngblood step up, Mo Diabate, Cliff. We still also need Stevenson to kind of get.
And Jared had, I thought, some good numbers. I don't have pull up the line from the other night. It was the timing of his buckets too. He had 8 points, but he had a bucket early. He had 2 threes. He made both his free throws. He didn't miss, if I'm looking at this right. Yeah, he didn't miss a shot.
Okay.
So he goes 8 points, 2 for 2 from the field, including a pair of threes, made both his free throws, had a couple of rebounds. He did get 3 fouls.
We're talking about LeBaron, or are we talking?
I'm talking about Jaron Stevenson.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Filine only had the 2 points.
Yeah.
A couple of assists, and he goes 0 for 4 from the field. But I didn't even notice that he didn't make a field goal until just now.
Yeah.
Of course, you score 90 as a team. I'm going to say only, because when you have 90 points, normally you might think a team's made more than 11 threes, but they only had 11 out of 26, so shot it at a good percentage, but were dang good at the free throw line, 19 of 23. And if you don't think that matters, Georgia shoots the same number, and they're 11 of 23, and you don't know how many of those were 1-and-1s also. So Bama's success at the stripe was part of, but not the only reason, that they were able to win as convincingly as they did.
All right, so a couple days off here, and then they travel to face the hottest 2-6 in conference, 13-8 team in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I watched the game Saturday night because I was fascinated with how this Arkansas team walked into Rupp Arena and pretty much just embarrassed. And I'm going to say embarrassed because for Kentucky head coach Mark Pope, that's a rough loss.
I'm not even going to go
that.
embarrass. I'm going to more so than embarrass the Kentucky team. I'm going to say infuriated the Kentucky fan base.
I mean,
because they wanted blood.
Calipari called us hogs. That is one of my favorite. Like, I love Roll Tide, but when you get the whole
he called the Hogs that night.
Calipari called us hogs.
Wow, I did not see that. Because I had an event after the basketball game, so I didn't get a chance to sit and watch.
I don't know that he actually did that, but
that would have been the most Cal thing ever, is to call the Hogs while standing on the floor at Rupp Arena.
I don't know. Okay.
He didn't have to call them; they showed up on their own. Clearly,
I mean, the three guys who he took with him dropped 52 on Kentucky to go back. I get it. That's an emotional. There's an emotional charge. There's a lot of feeling to it. Will there be let down? Will is this awaken a sleeping giant? I don't know.
I think Kentucky's overachieved.
I would agree with that.
I think he's done a really good job with them.
Yeah.
And I think they have. I think they've overachieved this year. I am curious what Arkansas will look like when Bama comes in. I hope they get brought back to reality, if they're even playing.
They are. They got a game against Texas.
Thank you. And Bama will play Texas after they play Arkansas. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. I don't know how that'll look, but it's great for Alabama in that they will not be taking Arkansas lightly.
No.
They understand that Arkansas went in and beat Kentucky worse than Alabama did. Both got wins, but Arkansas's was more convincing than Alabama's was. They got a great roster. They had won, not in league play, but they got a great roster. They got, I think, the second, if I'm not mistaken, they've got the second highest NIL in the country. Arkansas does, which doesn't surprise me.
That's why they brought Cal.
That's why they brought Cal, and that's why he agreed. Let's not forget kid ourselves. It's why they brought him, but it's also why he agreed to come.
Yeah.
Because they laid out the NIL deal for him.
And bring 3 of his top guys with him.
That was part of it. That was a big part of him coming. But
8 o'clock tip this coming Saturday night. What did you do wrong once again to get an 8 o'clock tip off in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Yeah. Early church ain't going to happen for me on Sunday. And here's why this is really risky and dangerous. Both are on the road. Both are against dangerous clubs. But you're right. It's an 8 o'clock tip in Fayetteville. You'll fly home afterwards. Then you're back on a plane Monday for what will be a 7 o'clock, 6 or 7 o'clock game.
In Austin.
In Austin. You weather that somehow, then you've got the extra day to get ready for what could be number 1 versus number 2 in the country in college basketball, and it's Alabama and Auburn.
You think they're going to? You think Duke? You think they could be number 1 and number 2?
I think there's a chance.
Okay.
Because don't think for a second ESPN can't factor into this.
That's a good point.
And if Alabama's able to continue to win, I don't even know who's Duke's got, and they're probably not going to lose anyway. But I think they can, if they want to do it, they can make the argument that Alabama's ahead of Duke, and you get the one versus, even if it's 1 versus 3. So what? It's the top 2 in the SEC, and 3 of the best in America.
The league is the league right now. In the top 10, you've got 5 SEC teams.
Yep.
This is, if you want to argue that there's a tougher league out there,
You can argue it.
I would be interested in hearing that
But
there's a rougher schedule than the SEC.
I could argue I'm the best looking man in the country, and I'm not going to win that argument.
Kidding. Well, I mean, if you want to have that argument, you can always find him at Chris
No,
Stewart
you won't
dot
find me.
online.
No,
And for the
you
right
won't
price,
find
for
me
the
there.
right price, listen, I got kids that want to go to college, so I can give out. I've got his number.
Hey, Sailor, watch it.
But yes, and you can always listen for him this coming Saturday night, 8 o'clock tip-off in Arkansas. A huge thanks to Scott Forrester. And when I originally wrote huge, I wrote hug. And so a big hug for Scott Forrester. And also for catching all
Ben
of my
Forrester.
many mistakes and doing his damnedest to make us presentable. God
You're
bless
awesome.
you.
You're great.
Find all your Crimson content on Cover Crimson and, of course, every single day on Next Round Live. I'm Kelly Hunter. For Chris Stewart, we thank you. We'll be back here again next Monday, being able to preview the Texas and Auburn game. But for now, we're going to focus on Arkansas, and
Roll Tide.
we'll see y'all next week. Take care.